we were going for on the lacrosse side, which was at a minimum being able to throw, 40, 50 miles an hour into a brick wall thousands and thousands and thousands of times.
I'll put you on the spot. I'm an angel investor. I come to you, I say, Joe, here is a 7-figure investment. I want you to do something outside of sports.
I think a huge opportunity locally.
All of a sudden you learn like, oh, I stink at this, but what will I
know
do?
one way to get a little better.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, my first podcast, I remember I had a list of like 10 questions, and it was like me with like a shaky voice. So what do you look for in players?
Oh,
and
man.
then the coach would go, and then I would like ask another. It was very much like a formal interview
Yeah.
as opposed to a conversation.
That's going to be tough.
Yeah, I think it was still useful for listeners.
Yeah.
As bad as I was, your coaches are talking about their process,
Right.
and that's what they were looking for in that podcast. But over time, right, you do 10, you do 20, you do 50, this is probably number 80 for
Right.
me. You learn that you can do it in a way that's a little more enjoyable.
Yeah. My mental gymnastics get around that of they almost like just like you can tell it's hard not to like just be like a little bit embarrassed of like your early product, like no matter what, right? It's like looking at it from the other side of the coin. Like if your first like iteration of what you did, you're still like, boom, crushed it.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. It means you have not improved one bit. Like you should feel that like this is not that great. Like
Yeah.
otherwise it's like, what have you been doing this whole time?
Or
you
they
know?
say you waited too long.
Yeah.
If you're trying to perfect the product, and obviously we learned that. I mean,
Yeah.
even with our initial kind of MVP app with the Peloton
Right.
version of our app,
Yeah.
it served a purpose and people liked it, but gosh, it was cringeworthy.
Speaking of.
New core?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, this is version 2. We'll have these in balls probably starting next week.
Next week, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know what the original core looked like, it was about
At least twice.
at least twice the size.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Not nearly as nice looking.
yeah. And the first version's been great.
Yeah.
But one of the issues we've had with it is players who shoot at a high speed, if they hit a pipe at 100 miles an hour, it'll break the polyurethane.
Yeah.
And that was one thing, we tested this core ad nauseum and
Yep.
made sure that this thing was sturdy, or the first core. And sure enough, the ball itself was breaking.
Yeah. Never would have saw that coming.
That's like a classic
Right.
startup story.
I know. Like the one thing you'd never imagine. But I keep on going back. I always go back to like the Peloton for lacrosse, like basis of like the whole company, because like in a way, like it's come full circle now, because the idea was like your original idea was like Peloton for lacrosse, like make learning lacrosse like more fun, more enjoyable, more interactive. And we kind of like, we bridged away from it for a little bit, and we started like really focusing on like the technology side behind up, like how to get there. And now like coming full circle with like the training and the AI, like we found like a more innovative way to train lacrosse and make it more fun. And it's like
Yeah.
Peloton for lacrosse. Like, look, there it is.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, nice. And it was now I use it all the time to describe it to people. I'm like, yeah, it's like Peloton for lacrosse. They're like, oh yeah.
The timing really worked out. But
I know.
where it kind of started was when I was coaching down in Texas. And I don't
Yeah.
know I've explained this to you, but initially pregame, we didn't have a field. So we'd go to a wall and we'd play a half-hour wall ball.
Yeah.
And when I first started, I'd have them just play a half hour. And if I could videotape it, you'd be like, what is this pathetic display of lacrosse? Kids just kind of half-ass throwing it, throwing behind the backs. And I was like, all right, I got to change this up. So what I did is I used our big speaker we'd use for practice, and I'd bump some good tunes. I'd use a whistle. I'd be like, all right, we're doing, regular righty, blow the whistle, for 30 seconds, blow the whistle, go. And they'd go hard for 30 and then blow the whistle. All right, 30-second break. Now we're going lefty. And it was just, they got so many more reps, but also so many more efficient game-like reps. I kid you not, there was an instant improvement in our performance on the field.
That's wild. I didn't know you did. I didn't know that's like the genesis of it.
Yeah.
But that makes perfect sense.
I mean, it started with that, and also started with, we got a Peloton.
yeah.
Right as COVID started, my wife, Alyssa, was pretty hell-bent on it. And I'm kind of like, dude, I don't need motivation to work out, all macho thinking,
Yeah.
I don't need it. Sure enough, we get it. And I do one ride, and I was like, this is silly. It was a very kind of, I don't remember who it was, but a very flamboyant, let's go, let's do this today. And I'm like, all right. Then I found, I think it was Matt Wilpers, or one of those coaches, he was like an accountant. And he's now a Peloton instructor. And I did a few rides. I'm like, I get it. Right. You don't have to think about it. You just show
Yeah.
up, it kicks your butt for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever the class is. And you're like, wow, that's just so much easier than like mentally getting there yourself of drawing out whatever you're going to do on the bike, whatever the workout is.
It's funny how like nuanced it is now, where like they have like the different instructors that like almost like are archetypes of like personalities that like different people would be drawn to.
Yeah.
Like if you're like,
They're all so
they're
different.
so, yeah, like I mean I see on social, I don't have a Peloton, but like I see on social media like sometimes clips of people like, I know there's like a really like attractive like girl who kind of makes it like a little more like flirty and like
They're all in their sports bra.
yeah, I mean like
I've
I
seen
was
the
sexually
pictures.
maybe even like a little sexual like, and like if for a certain demographic guys, some guys, maybe some
Yeah.
women or whatever, like are probably like, I can't wait to ride my bike with Jennifer or whoever it is, like I mean whatever gets you going. I mean you can imagine like going into an investor pitch, as Peloton being like, all right, here's the core concept, but we're gonna add in this layer later of like these different personalities, and people are gonna like really like bond to them and like become like almost like pretend they're friends with them almost, and like I don't think I would have thought that was like possible in 2020 or
Yeah.
2018 when that was a whole thing.
Well, to that point, the How I Built It podcast,
Oh yeah, I love that.
the Peloton guy,
Raz or
Guy Raz,
something?
yeah, he was talking about the CEO of Peloton. I think how he pitched it to his buddy, who might have been the first investor, one of them, is he didn't just like pitch it. He put him on a bike and he like went through a class with him, just standing there, like talking him through it.
No way.
Yeah. And he's like, the guy was like, oh, I get it.
Yeah, that's a great way of doing it. That would work.
A lot better than trying to do it over like a Zoom.
Yeah. I mean, you always hear about like investors, like we invest in like maybe this is kind of like overblown, but like we invest in like passionate leaders who have like a vision more so than like a, like a built out, finished business, because
Yeah.
they believe in the person that, and like, I'm sure there's truth to that, but like, if you can come up with an innovative way to like pitch your idea, like, hey, like that might cut through a lot of clutter if you can just like come up with say, hey, I'm set you next to this bike and just show you what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Just on a massive, massive larger scale.
I think you still definitely need that point, or that part of investors believe in the founders.
Yeah.
And then it's like, all right, I believe in the founders. Now is it a good idea?
For sure.
Right.
Yeah.
You can have the best idea in the world. If they don't trust you or they don't think you can, I mean, if you can't bring it to fruition, then it doesn't matter what the idea is. I mean, how many $1 million ideas are thought of every day?
Yeah. And how many not $1 million ideas are thought of by pretty passionate people? Like I hate, that's my worst conversation is like when you talk to somebody and it's like, you can just tell, especially when they're like, them a little bit, or like you've heard good things, and you can tell they're super passionate about this project, and they're like, they want to change the world, but like their idea is like, we're gonna turn goldfish into cheeseburgers or something, just something just completely out of like left field, where it's like, oh, like this is not the idea.
Yeah.
But like I see where you're going with this, and I'm not saying I'm like the arbiter of like good ideas or bad ideas, but sometimes sometimes you see or you hear something, you're like, man, like it's not gonna be that, but like maybe something else.
Well, if they have the best idea and they have a, for lack of a better term, weak founder, I'm not going to bet on that as much as I would bet on, I know, this guy is smart, he's ambitious, he's willing to do what it takes. Yes, it's not a great idea, but you're in it long enough, you start to pivot, you start to figure out if there's got to be something there, right? If it got you excited, there's enough people in this world, it's going to get someone excited. They're going to figure out that niche or that exact lane that they need to be in, and they're going to be successful.
Yeah, for sure. And I always wonder, like, I was thinking about that, like you just kind of brought it up again. We've had this conversation a million times. Like, if you can just stay in it long enough, like I wonder, like how much like people give thought to like, when they're other founders or just like business owners, like how much of that do they really cognitively think of, like, all right, if I can just stay in business, if I can just stay in the game long enough, like, and then eventually good things are gonna happen, versus like I am like sometimes a little too like, we got to make it happen, today, got to make it happen tomorrow, and like there's like a trade off there. But like it does seem that the longer you can stay in it, you're like, all right, we're gonna do something here. Like especially if you're gonna work hard and you're gonna think about it and you're gonna try and like and be willing to change, be willing to adapt.
It's like the investing theory of it's time in the market, not timing of the market.
Yeah,
right. The longer you stay in, you're not inevitably going to make money.
Yeah, that's very true. I'm not much of like a stock investor these days, but like if I was, I would just plant some money somewhere and just hope. I mean, because I've done it the other way. I've lost plenty of money that way. Yeah.
I'm also reading a great book that talks about a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset, Where the fixed
Mm,
mindset is, I'm Joe, I'm smart, or I'm not smart.
yeah.
Right. If I'm smart, I'm never going to put myself in a position to be exposed as not being smart. So I'm never going to take risks.
Oh, okay.
Or if I'm not smart, I'm never going to try in the first place.
Yeah.
Whereas you have the growth mindset. Yeah, I may stink at this today, but then I can learn it. Give me a month, give me a year, give me 5 years. I'm going to be an expert at this in no time. And it's
Yeah.
like just the psychological difference of the two mindsets is probably the difference between someone who succeeds and someone who doesn't.
I know. Yeah, it's so true. Especially now, like I know everyone like maybe AI is like talk to like to the like let's stay away from AI for a second. Like just the amount of people that are like really smart people. Like maybe I should like forget about like that there are like extremely talented people like all over the place. Like even like locally. Like I remember I was listening to the podcast you did with Margaret Dietz, and like I distinctly remember when we talked to her the first time. Like I was like, I have no idea like what this is going to be about. Like it's not free, and it's not like it costs money, but like you think of like branding as like when you're a lay person, you think of like branding as like a logo and maybe some like concepts,
Colors.
some colors, right? Like,
Yeah.
and next thing you know, like we got off the phone with her, and I was like, "Holy shit, that's a real deal!" Like, that was like a science. That was way more scientific than art. And like, just going through, I think we talked about this afterwards. Was like, just going through that process was like, oh shoot, like we should just do that, like because it helped us like formulate so much about like the vision of the company, like what we stand for, like what we believe in, like our founding, like what we're gonna go after. And it was all about like it was supposed to be about branding, which like
Yeah.
in retrospect it makes sense, but like it was just like such a valuable experience. And then like is it Steve Case, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like his family is like a legendary like car people. I was like,
Yeah.
wait, that's him.
Yeah. You
Like,
saw him on the podcast.
yeah,
You're like,
I
know that
assume
guy.
I assume that because Acropolis has been big for a while. I thought that was like a family business. I thought that like they've been growing that for like years and years and years.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. He had a
I
pretty
mean,
cool story.
yeah,
When he
that
started.
was awesome. And it's just like, man, like that's what I mean. That's a value of, like real networking. Like if you like know a few people who, I mean, those people are killing it, and like they have skills that are different than like anything I have, or like
Yeah.
it's like maybe real networking is got some value instead of the maybe a little too surface level. Like let's go to a networking event and see who we meet. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but like
Well, I think networking is a good thing. You talk to some founders who are like, it's a waste of time, right?
yeah,
Think of it like Naval Ravikant's like, don't bother networking, just make something cool that
Yeah.
people will want to work with you.
yeah.
And I'm like, yeah,
If you're
that's
great,
true too.
if you could do that,
Yeah, but I think a big part of networking is, and we've talked about this, but people are good at like one or two things, really good.
really good.
Right. And, you can be sufficient in other categories, but at the end of the day, if you want something that's going to be very successful, you need to stay in your lane at what you're really good at.
Yeah,
And then have other people, surround yourself with other people who are very good at other things, especially where you lack.
yeah,
So I think that's the value of networking, is finding the people, obviously the introductions, things like that. But once you start building a team around you, then you can really, you build the right team for business, all of a sudden you can do like 100 different businesses and you're going to be successful.
right.
You
yeah.
learn the marketing, you learn the sale. It doesn't really matter what you're selling, what you're marketing.
Yeah.
Obviously if it's a decent idea and there's a demand
For sure.
outside of those things.
Yeah, and that's where like that's where the AI plug comes in, because like before you get to that point, like you can use AI now to like cover your bases to like say you're not you can't code for anything,
But AI can.
but AI
Yeah.
certainly can, or at least can get you really close. You don't have to go spending like thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And people who have like I think of like people who are really really good at what they do, like and really passionate about like again another plug, like Adam Mazzoni on his podcast was awesome. Like everybody,
Yeah.
I haven't talked to him in a while, but like his personality came through like perfectly. Like he is doing exactly what he should be doing, and like I can tell he's gonna do other things in the future. And like he's a great person who could just like leverage like a little bit of AI to like get like a little bit of like the back office of like whatever he wants to do, like just like prove the concept, and then be like, and then have the confidence like, oh, I can, like this is definitely gonna work, because not everything's gonna work, right? So but you
Yeah.
can get to that first like iteration of like the minimum viable product, and then boom, all right, that worked. Now we're out the door. Now you can go. Now you feel comfortable to go spend the money to go hire the the
Mhm.
subject matter experts that you need to kind of round out your skills.
Helps you move so much quicker.
Oh, I know.
It's like, I always compare it to, it was like you writing out a math problem and doing it yourself as opposed to using a calculator. And it's
Yeah.
like, if you have the calculator available. Why don't you just use it?
Yeah.
Because you're just going to be, you're going to do something that would take you 2 hours in literally a minute.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you compound that over a year. How many different things can you test? Can you try all of a sudden find a way to
and it remembers it all.
Yeah.
And so it's like it's growing with you. It's like
True.
It's just a wild piece of technology. It's exciting. I mean, it's cool to see, like, especially with like Syracuse like growing right now, like the Micron deal, like everything is just like coming like full. It feels like it's coming like full circle, like for this area, like all at the right time, because like disruptive, transformative technologies like can literally change like entire like regions, like fortunes and outcomes. And I mean, you saw with like steel, and you saw with the internet, and now you've got AI, you've got autonomous vehicles, you've got all sorts of stuff, and then you've got this like huge development coming in Syracuse, and that's like, to me, I think that's like the foundation of like a lot of investment's going to come here, because there's going to be so much need for follow on and help supplement what they're going to be doing from a company standpoint. That like people are going to be like, oh, I'll put money behind whatever in Syracuse, because like there's going to be this like baseline of like there's going to be enough economic activity going on that like it can support a lot.
Yeah,
certainly a lot more than it can right now.
Yeah, my father-in-law is a real estate appraiser, commercial real estate, and he's like, there's not one appraisal report that doesn't mention Micron coming in like upstate New York. Like
really?
Every single one has a mention of it. It's always mentioned just because of the amount of investment in the area, the amount of people that will be coming to the area.
Yeah, it's gonna be wild. It's gonna be a whole different city.
Yeah.
Which is like, how do you put yourself in this position to like be successful with like, or just like, or live your most comfortable life, like just like with what's gonna change? Because like,
I know.
Some of the things around here that you do enjoy, that are sometimes maybe not the most exciting things to enjoy, but like the lack of traffic, it's nice.
I was just gonna say, I'm like, you're gonna have to wait 10 minutes in traffic.
I know.
Dude.
I can't believe it.
People can't even wait 30 seconds in Syracuse.
I mean, it was a significant component behind my wife Adrian and I's decision to move from Buffalo back to Syracuse, because like I was working downtown, I was living in the suburbs. It was a 6 mile trip to work, and on most mornings it would take me an hour, and it was just so frustrating.
That's such a long time.
I mean,
it's not, but it is.
It's not, it is. But then, and there was like podcasts. There was like, and I was working for a company, so I didn't have like a million people I could do phone calls
97.65, the radio. That gets a little old.
I think I listened to like Lord's original like album like for 3 months straight, because there was nothing else going on. I was like, all right, because I'm a Lord fan now.
Yeah, great album. Today's episode of Upstate Impact is brought to you by Renewal by Andersen of Central New York. Summer's here, and it's the perfect time to upgrade your windows. With Renewal by Andersen's exclusive Fibrex material and expert installation, you'll get a cooler, more energy-efficient home that looks as good as it feels. Click the link in our show notes to schedule your free quote today. Renewal by Andersen, superior products, exceptional service. I want to talk about get reps.
Yeah.
Right. So we talked about the Peloton aspect of it, but that was literally the inception of it. This is back like COVID. And then I ended up moving back to Syracuse, and you were still figuring out what your next steps were. But we ran millions of business ideas by each other. We've been close forever. And once you started to take a real interest in it, it was like, all right, we have, 1,000 kids a month using our app, right? There's definitely some potential here, but it's missing a component. And we figured out that component was that we have no way to track stats. All it was an audio recording. You could tell if the kid finished it, as in finished listening to it, but you don't know what they actually did. So how valuable is it for a coach, or, and also for the player, that not be able to see the feedback of, all right, I did X amount this session in a month. Now I did Y amount, right? You want to see that improvement. And you had the idea of, hey, why don't we make a smart lacrosse ball that can track repetitions and track statistics? And I was like, let's do it. And I'm like, how do we do it? And you're like, I don't know.
Good question.
But you're like, I think I saw a smart baseball at Dick's.
Yep.
And that kind of started it all.
Yeah.
I think you went, bought one.
Yep.
Cut it open.
Just
to see what the heck was even in there.
Yeah.
And realized, hey, I think this can be done.
Yeah. Yeah. It was such a weird and wild like experience, because like never in my million like dreams I always wanted to like start a business. I always wanted like invent something or be part of inventing something, but that was not the way I thought it was going to go. Certainly not from like a standpoint of like I didn't know anything about really like the nuts and bolts of like the engineering side of it,
Yeah.
and like tear
Well,
it down and try and build it
not
up.
to take credit, but I remember telling you for years, I'm like, Joe, why are you working for
Oh,
someone?
yeah, yeah.
You know,
I
and
think a
you
lot of
kind
people
of,
feel that way.
yeah, I'm like, you have the drive, the ambition, the business parts to be able to do something on your own.
Well, I
I'm glad you
appreciate that.
listened.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I appreciate the nudge, but and the opportunity. But yeah, it was eye opening, especially. I mean, you're right there, like seeing just how important it was for people to be able to like track their metrics. Like it's the same thing. Like I wasn't really a believer in like being able to track your like your steps when when that was first a thing when Apple came out with I don't know if it was Apple or Samsung, whoever it
Fitbit
was or whoever,
yeah,
yeah,
all of them,
whoever.
yeah.
But I remember hearing about it, I'm like, who cares? Like, I mean, tracking your steps. And then you start doing it and you're like, oh, like this makes sense. Like, there's something innate about it that like is like a human. You're just like, all right, like I want to know how I'm doing. I want to know how I compare to yesterday. I want to know how I compare to others. And you can use it as a tool, or I guess it could be like dangerous in a certain way if you just end up endlessly comparing yourself to other people. But certainly there's healthy aspects to it. And like certain like little things that were just like mind blowing, like adding a leaderboard on the Get Reps app and seeing the usage literally multiply just like overnight because like people want to see how they compare to other people.
Yeah.
They want to know where they rank and they just go after it. And it's been like extremely eye opening to see like there's something. I mean, I don't think there's like something you can point to as like a fundamental principle of it. It's just like if you track it, they will come kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just like people want to use things that they can see how they're doing.
And people are competitive, I
Yeah,
think.
for sure.
Naturally competitive, especially on a sports app such
Yeah.
as Get Reps. Lacrosse players tend to be competitive. But even going back to the early days, figuring out, all right, this can be done. And then remember, we're at LaxCon in like, is that 2022?
Yeah.
I think, or
It might have
21.
been 21. It was right after pandemic. So
Yeah,
maybe
I think it was 21. And no, I wasn't home yet. 22.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. 'Cause it
Still
was
had to wear
over.
masks at that point, and we're at LaxCon, and we had our MVP app, the Peloton app, and we're like, we have this very rough prototype of a ball that was taped together
Sure was.
that would just show random bits of feedback coming back when we throw it against a bounce back. And
Yep.
we're like, we'll have a ball in 6 months, baby.
Turns out.
Turns out, what, 3 years later? Maybe 2.5.
Yeah.
We end up actually putting a ball on the market. I think proving the concept and getting a commercial product out there is a large step.
Yeah. I mean, in retrospect, it makes a lot more sense being like, well, it turns out there's no electronics you can point to that are designed to be, literally thrown extremely or shot into a wall at high speeds. Like,
Yeah.
electronics are not meant to be abused like that.
Well, that was part of the baseball story. And
Yeah.
granted, they don't sell smart baseballs anymore, and we won't use the name of it, but
Yeah.
tell them what happened.
Yeah, I think I bought either one or two, but I know I bought at least one and I brought it home. And before I even tore it apart, I was just kind of curious. I was like, they're selling these. Like, it's got to be at least durable enough to be able to be thrown at pitching speeds into a catcher's mitt. So I just took it and I was standing in my garage, just by myself. And I took it at maybe shoulder height. I just kind of threw it down and it broke just instantly. Like the ball didn't like break open, but the electronics were completely shot. And I was like, oh, this is not. And I think that's when I went back and bought a second one because I was like, oh, maybe it's just a
Yeah.
fluke. Turns out it was just a design issue that they just never really, they didn't really put much,
Yeah.
effort into making it extremely durable, which was like a non-starter for the lacrosse ball because
It was meant to be thrown against a net.
yeah, a nice little draped net that would kind of come to a nice, soft, easy little landing spot, as opposed to what we were going for on the lacrosse side, which was at a minimum being able to throw 40, 50 miles an hour into a brick wall thousands and thousands and thousands of time. And that's really what ultimately took a lot of development.
And naturally, we're like, well, they just did it wrong.
Yeah.
We can figure it out. But a funny story, you probably remember this, is one of the early prototypes. I don't remember if this was before LaxCon. I think it was. It was like the first time we had the roughest prototype ever. You're like, dude, I think we have a ball right now. And we both were working remote. I live about 5 minutes from me. He had me drive down. and you have, your stick out there. You're like, I haven't really tested it, but let's go do this. So we're walking out to your backyard to the bounce back and to the goal. And you're like, oh, I got to wake it up. And you're shaking it and it's not waking up. So you throw it and you throw it about 40 yards, and your sodded grass that's overgrown with like divots and whatnot just completely hides the ball.
Oh yeah.
And we spent literally like 90 minutes looking for this prototype that we were both just so jacked up to try out, and we couldn't find it for the whole afternoon. And I mean, we ended up finding it, and it was just so funny because we're here, we're so excited, and all of a sudden it's just gone.
It's like our future's right in front of our hands.
Now we're literally
it's in the grass
about
somewhere.
to grab the mower just to trim the grass down.
Yeah.
But I mean, fast forward a few years, right? A lot of development. I mean, we learned a ton. We're very fortunate to have a great group of investors behind us and to support us. And now, to the point where, we're having $100K a month sales, and, getting ready to raise another round to help us really kind of take that next step.
Hell yeah.
Why don't you talk about that transition? Because as I say it, even listening to myself say it, it sounds like it just kind of happened.
I wish.
And yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a lot of time there and a lot of unknown. And maybe just talk about that a little. Obviously, you as a CEO, we both kind of been through it, but I think you have the better grasp of like, wow, are we close? Are we not close? I mean, you've talked about kind of imposter syndrome a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's like, oh, wow, all of a sudden we're getting these sales. Like, are we even that good? Is this product that good? It's hard.
Yeah, for sure. I was just recently thinking about that. Like, like the sports analogy is like the Nick Sabans of the world. They're like, it's all about the process. Like, don't worry about the result. Like, just focus on the process.
True.
And like, it's easier said than done for sure. Especially, on both sides of it. When you're not getting sales, you're like, do I even have a product market fit? Is there something I'm doing that's completely wrong? Is there something we need to do that's going to, change things up for us? Is the offer wrong? Am I wrong? What are we doing wrong here? And then the sales come in, and then you're like, do we need to just keep everything as is and not change ever again and just let the market take over and ride the wave? I think again, it goes back to like the importance of like bringing in the right people at the right time and like the subject matter experts. From a marketing standpoint, like that's not my forte. Like I thought that you could, essentially put money into social
sponsor
media,
some Facebook posts, and you could get sales,
and it would happen. And it turns out that's not the case. And it depends on, I think, the business, but like for us, we had to put some significant time, attention, and money behind just getting the name out there, because I think in retrospect, it was almost shocking to people to see a technology like we came out with, because it's one of a kind. It's not there's a competitor in the market already. There's no one who's really seen it. And as much as there was a few smart baseballs on the market, there's not too many people out there who are playing lacrosse and baseball. So who knows, even like really had heard of that at that point. And so it was like this completely foreign idea to people. And the last thing anyone wants to do is go spend $100+ on a product and then have it be a complete flop or break on you, like, like on the baseball standpoint. And so I think there was some initial hesitancy from people. Like I think they, maybe heard of the product here and there. I mean, we could try to do our best to get out and like on the road show and show it off at the tournaments and stuff like that. But ultimately, I think what ended up being a catalyst was getting a really strong, marketing department in place. I mean, we outsource it, and the woman who runs that does a great job. Yeah, Chloe does a great job. She absolutely kills it. I mean, that was almost like flipping a switch. Like at that point, I mean, granted, it was like 2.5 years of, well, almost
very slow switch.
Yeah, very, very slow switch. But all of a sudden, she got in there and she started doing her thing. And it was right around the holiday. I think we came up with a pretty compelling offer for the holiday season. If you've got a lacrosse player in your life, like make it one, nice, easy, palatable price and out the door. And I think keeping a year warranty also helped, because it gives people like the cushion and the belief that this product's going to be there and it's going to, and we do stand behind it. But things kind of really started going from there. And then, it's been interesting to see like recently we've been low on inventory. We're waiting for like another big like round of our stock to come in. And so we essentially turned off our marketing. And so it's been cool to see like how much sales could be driven by word of mouth, because before we had that big marketing push, but you're getting almost no word of mouth sales. And now we're getting quite a bit, and it's really nice to see. And it's nice when, I guess it's really nice when your product does what it's supposed to do and it really makes a difference. I mean, I get emails every single day from people, even when there's an issue, which is like some of my favorite emails, because you get this initial email from a customer who's maybe not super excited about the fact that they've got whatever issue with their ball, right? I mean, things happen, whether it's a charger doesn't last as long as it's supposed to, or maybe there's an issue with the ball. I mean, things happen. I mean, no product's gonna be
hardware and software product. There's
exactly.
bugs on both
There's gonna be
sides.
bugs on both sides for sure. But you work with them, and then in their email it says, but just so you know, like my son or daughter absolutely loves this product. Like they're obsessed with it. They think it's the greatest thing ever, and I can see the improvement. Which, like, for $100, like what else would you want from a product?
It's
like,
one lesson.
My kid is outside. They're playing lacrosse. They're playing the sport they like. They're getting better. They can clearly see that they're getting better. They feel like they're getting better. The parent feels like they're getting better. It's a win for everybody. Like, as opposed to all the different things you can spend your money on, which, some are valuable, some are not so valuable. But getting that feedback is so encouraging of like, all right, we're heading up the right tree. Like, we should keep pushing and keep innovating. And that's the plan. I mean, I think there's such an opportunity, like, going back to AI, like, just to be able to be like that, like, coach in your back pocket that literally just like helps you get better more efficiently. Just here's the data, like it can process data for you. It can tell you, okay, you're not as strong here. Here, why don't you spend a little time doing this? Simple. But it's not so simple when you don't have someone telling you that, right? Like, you can't always have a coach right there telling you, like, hey, do this. It's just, I think people are very comforted by the idea of being able to be told, prescribed what they need to do to get better.
And people, especially kids, tend to do what they're good at.
Yeah.
So if they're really good at their righty wall ball, they're not going to do lefty as much naturally because they don't want to be bad at something.
I'm still guilty of that. I mean, I'm still only, if I play wall ball, I'm still only playing left-handed.
I do want to go back to, you're talking about how we had the initial bump in sales, right? I remember it was like November, we had Inside Lacrosse, Terry Foy had his draft, a great article about us.
Yep.
And they ended up publishing it. And we saw over $30,000 in sales, and we were still months out from launching our product. We thought it was going to be a couple months. It ended up being 6 months.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh, wow, there is a serious demand here. But, fortunately and unfortunately, I think that was a majority of the early adopters in lacrosse. Because we're like, wow, that was one article.
Yeah.
Can you imagine when we actually do some marketing where we have it, we're still months out. Imagine when we actually have the product ready to sell. And sure enough, we get to that point and the sales just really aren't coming like we thought it would.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're trying different things and we're like, we know there's a demand, but it's like we couldn't get to that, early majority yet.
Yeah.
And I think that was a pivotal time because we could have been like, the people don't want this, or this is, not a good product or whatever it was. We could have, we probably told ourselves all of that. But at the end of the day, right, go back to that warranty, and it's like once people realize, oh, they're around, this is legit, this isn't a gimmick, then all of a sudden, that mixed with the timing of Chloe, a professional digital marketer, and knowing the right wording and whatnot, and all of a sudden, boom, that almost happened overnight. That whole timeline was over a year, but then all of a sudden, from like no sales to holy cow, look at how many sales we're getting. Kind of happened overnight.
Yeah, I mean, it happened so fast that we weren't even able to like budget or plan for it. I mean, I still remember, like, I had my mom and my mother-in-law, like, literally, like, around Christmas time, like, coming over. They were grateful with their time and they were helping me fulfill orders. It was like, I mean, we're doing this right now. Like, it means the stories you hear about, like
the Christmas timeline, right? People want it under the tree. They want it in the stocking.
Yeah. And it was like, I think that really helped us, like, help propel us forward, because I think one thing we did a good job of was like really like staying in the pocket with customer service, because to your point, like, people have their, it's a busy time of year, and people have their quote unquote needs. Like, I need this by this date. I need this by, this, I need a special favor, whatever.
Not to stereotype, especially lacrosse parents are very specific and have their needs. And
right. And I think that by giving that attention, I mean, we could have, especially me, I love to, outsource where possible, or, use technology. We could have used a few solutions, but we kept it traditional. We were in the emails and on the phone calls talking to these people. and like really learning what they are looking for, what they're not looking for, what they're excited about, what they're not excited about, and just giving them the personal attention where now they're a little more willing to work with us, especially early on when there might be an issue or two, right? When it's not, especially going back to a brand new product and a brand new category of product where there's not like a ingrained knowledge of how to set it up,
Yeah.
right?
It
It's
was
not,
ingrained to us
yeah,
because we were doing it every day and we
right,
thought people would just know.
right. And I mean, nothing could be intuitive about a ball that has got no buttons on it,
Yeah.
right?
Very true.
I mean, what are you gonna do with it? I mean, how are you gonna get it to work?
And this is also talking with customers, and we're 4 months late at this point
Yeah,
with delivering the product. They're already upset. They
yeah.
already put their money
At a
down.
minimum, we had some pre-orders that were going back years.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah. From that early LaxCon when we thought we were the good point.
Yeah,
Actually, they ended up,
they're,
most of them were very
yeah,
cool. Those were the early adopters being like, hey, just send it when it's ready, baby.
yeah.
And that was very cool of those people.
Well, you just reminded me. Sorry, that you just reminded me that I think another thing that we did that was completely your idea that I think is still paying dividends for us was we had our Gen 1 launch product, which was definitely good enough to launch. Like I don't think we would have launched it without it. But we had to cut some, we had to do what we had to do to get it out the door. Right? The injection molding wasn't ready for the charger, so we 3D printed it, which it still came out looked good, but it didn't look as good as like the nice glossy 3D, glossy injection molded charger that we have now. There's some things about the ball that we've improved since then, but we knew that the product was about maybe 70% of what the Gen 2 product ended up being. And you had the idea of like, hey, let's reach out to those initial, it was only, at that point it was only, maybe 1,000 customers, a few hundred customers, whatever it was. Let's reach out to them and offer them to replace their product for free with this new ball so that they get maybe we didn't give them a wow factor the first time, or maybe we did, but let's give them a super wow now.
Yep.
And I mean, to this day, we still get emails like, "Hey, you're looking through my old inbox, and I just came across this email where you offered to send us, a new ball, and like I'd kind of given up on the product because like this, or this, I couldn't get it set up or whatever. But like, would you still honor it?" And like, I'm always like, "Yeah, I'll honor it, like for sure. Like here, I mean, I've never been more happy to give away a free product before. Like,
Yeah.
you bought it, you deserve to have, the product that you expected it to be." And now that we have that in our hand, like, of course we're gonna give that to you.
A chance to win them back.
Yeah, yeah,
Right. And as you said, the word of mouth is starting to happen.
right. And
And
you only get
that's
one chance
huge.
for that. I mean, you really do, and
Well,
it's
two, I guess.
yeah, I guess, yeah, I guess you too. Maybe three if we nearly do, but
Yeah.
it is like that's like the one thing you want to go out, you want to get out, as much as you want to like resist like the human nature to be like, oh, I don't want to put it out until it's ready. Like what if it's not what people think it's gonna be? Like, you almost have to like do some mental gymnastics to get through that part. But to the same point, like, there is something to be said for that, where like you don't want to just like start retailing a product that's not fully baked yet, because
It's
you
like a
really only
fine
do get
line almost.
you
Yeah.
only get so much of an opportunity to make an impression on people, and I mean, you could probably win people back, but it's gonna probably cost you a lot of more time and money to try and get back in front of them again and try and show them like, look, no, I've changed. I mean,
Yeah.
you see people, celebrities have done it before. They've rebranded themselves and come back from catastrophe.
I think a good way to look at it is that fine line, the balance of it is if you can provide value, right? For example, with our product, if your kid's going to be playing more wall ball, that's going to get him better at lacrosse, even if it's the buggiest thing in the world that's kind of annoying. If he ends up playing more wall ball, then it's probably worth putting out.
Yeah.
Whereas if he can't even get it set up, so he's not playing wall ball or she's not playing wall ball, and it's just more headache than it's worth,
Yeah. It's like, what's the point?
probably not worth
Yeah.
bringing it to market yet.
Yeah.
But so our product, people think we're a smart lacrosse ball, which we are, but we don't own the actual ball part of it, right? Well, I guess we do after it's made, but we hire someone to do that. And what we own is the technology core inside,
Yep.
and plus the software side of it. So clearly, this goes on a lacrosse ball, but what else can it go on?
Ooh. Well, we're
A lot of things.
Yeah, a lot of things, but we're launching a smart hockey puck here later this summer, which I'm really excited about. I actually just got some production prototypes, so the not actual prototypes, but put them through the actual production process on the line, and then they come off, and they are the same pucks that would go to a customer in a couple months, and they look phenomenal. They were very cool. They work great. Um, I also have the same thing for football, and we're kind of talking to some people about when we're going to launch that and how we're going to launch that. But really, you could go in really any sports ball, including golf balls. Really, I mean, it gets a little more difficult when you're talking about like a bladder inflated or a hollow ball like a tennis ball or a pickleball. But
Pickleball would be tough.
yeah, for sure. Or in a wiffle ball, same thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, really, any real sports ball, soccer ball, basketball, field hockey, cricket. It can also go on sports equipment. We're looking at a lot of different ways to use the technology because at the end of the day, it all comes back to getting the data out of the piece of equipment and then turning it back around and how we can use that data to help drive outcomes and performance.
We always talk about how it's the blessing and the curse of
Yeah.
Get Reps is that we can do a lot of things. We just don't know which one we're going to do
Yeah,
yet.
do next.
So we can do anything. We can't do everything.
Right. I mean, I just think there's going to be similar to how like home appliances and kitchen and home kitchen stuff, the process of over, maybe 5 or 10 years, everything from thermostats to security cameras got
Yeah.
smart.
Your toasters
Yeah,
has
everything.
an app on your phone.
Every single thing's got an app now, and most of them are really useful and actually pretty like revolutionary. I think the same exact thing is going to happen in sports and probably some other industries too, because I mean, it makes perfect sense. Like if you're going to be measuring, you're going to go to the gym and you're going to measure your bench press because you're hoping that your bench press is going to get you stronger so that you can throw a ball faster, but you're not measuring if you're actually throwing the ball faster.
Yeah.
Like you're missing a step there. And I think people are going to come to believe that to be, kind of gospel because it's perfectly legitimate and reasonable. And I think it's where it's going to go. I think it's going to be kind of one of those big shifts that people kind of see come and then come all at once.
You think it'll be an all at once, or do you think it'll be kind of a slow drip of all of a sudden 10 years from now,
Yeah.
everyone's training smart with lacrosse and football and all, everyone has an app for their training, but all of a sudden, it doesn't happen overnight. It's just things getting introduced and all of a sudden
Yeah.
you sign up for this team and they use this software with this hardware product.
I think that's the way it's going to go, right? I mean, I don't think all of a sudden it's going to be like 10 products in a month are going to be launched, but I think one day you're going to wake up and you're going to look around and you're like, oh, wow, there's a lot of these kind of products out there. And I don't think they're going to all be Get Reps products. I would like to be a lot of them, but
Affiliate of Get Reps.
Yeah, right. But I think I already know of a few that are kind of coming to market that are looking to get involved and do some things that are pretty similar.
What are the chances we venture outside of smart sports?
Never say never.
Remember that one VC meeting?
Yeah.
Guys like, I think you're hitting the low hanging fruit with the smart sports. And
Yeah.
we're like, all right. I mean, thanks, but it's already, it's already hard enough to think of what we should do next in sports, let alone if you open the door to anything.
But I mean, that's the nice thing about it's a pretty unique technology, and I think there will be other opportunities that come, whether we do them in house or we partner with somebody. I think, who knows? Future will tell. But I think there's tons of opportunity. I think if we do this again in a year, I think it'll almost be again like, I mean, I can't believe we talked about that or this because like we went in this direction and we didn't even see that coming because it's just it's so much just happening. I mean, I try to spend as much time as I can like learning about emerging technologies and being on like the bleeding edge of anything that's kind of new and exciting, and I'm still feeling like I'm months or years behind, like learning what's going to come, or maybe not even being aware of it at all. And then something comes out and it's like, wait, I know there's a new model coming out that's gonna generate video in 30 seconds and do exactly what you wanted to do, and you don't need actors, you don't need huge production costs anymore, and we're probably 6 months away from something like that. I mean, who knows?
I'll put you on the spot. Oof. You ready?
Sure.
I'm an angel investor.
Ooh.
I come to you, I say, Joe, here is a 7-figure investment in your company with the technology you have. I want you to do something outside of sports. What comes to mind? What would be something you would at least entertain? Or where do you see an opportunity?
I think a huge opportunity locally is coming up with a unique ways of combining making they call it next gen community building, where I think everybody knows. I think most parts of the country have housing shortages, and like you think of all the different ways you could live, right? I mean, we lived in college together with 6 other people. We lived
couple
squirrels for sure. A couple squirrels were living amongst us. You live. A lot of people live, traditionally in a single family. They can live in an apartment. But there's been like, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of innovation around. Like, the tiny homes kind of popped up. But like, what about like, suburban row houses where you can kind of still get the personal, individual, like custom feel of a home, but it's not as expensive because you're sharing 2 of the walls are shared with another resident, and you've got, parks, and you've got, you really are like really thinking critically and thinking smartly about how you can put a lot of people and a lot of entertainment and lifestyle choices all in one area while not having it be prohibitively expensive.
Yeah.
Because I think, right, I mean, I think people are very drawn to living in city environments and urban environments because of how much there is to do. But I don't think there's anything saying that you need to have, an urban environment to do that, right? You could have, I think, a Main Street USA is kind of the same thing, but there's not really, that's like kind of a dying breed. Like if you had like a Main Street, but you also had community around it, going several blocks in each direction, and on the weekends or and at nights, people kind of walked to this community square and had all these things to do. I think that would be pretty attractive. And I think the only thing that's really stopping it is that there hasn't been a great economic model for it, where someone can say, I can build 2,000 of these units for 150 grand, sell them for 210 grand, and be, the successful, real estate investor I want to be.
Yeah.
Just really, I mean, I would, because it's that's a large amount, I would think very critically about where that money could be best applied. But at this stage in my life, I'm extremely interested in doing something that's, going to have some sort of impact, just like I was with reps. Like I can see myself working at a business or trying to start a business where it's just like purely a money play, where nothing is really being invented or anything new or any real development or advancement is taking place. I mean, our product now, you can see that athletes are getting better and they're having more success. They're getting more confidence, and that's a positive impact. It's not curing cancer, but it's a positive impact. And I think there's a ton of low hanging fruit that could be coming down the pipe in that same kind of regards.
Just got to think outside the box.
Outside the box, baby.
Sweet. Joe, well, appreciate you having me on, brother.
That was really quick.
It's fun, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I think once we have the hockey puck out, we'll get you back on here to discuss what's next.
All right. Late summer, early fall.
Let's do it.
Thanks for having me.